I declare the motion passed.
Two proposed resolutions moved by the Secretary for Transport and Logistics. First, a motion under the Fixed Penalty Traffic Contraventions Ordinance, and two, second, motion under the Fixed Penalty Criminal Proceedings Ordinance. Members have been informed that as the two motions seek to increase the fixed penalty for various offences that have a direct impact on road safety and traffic congestion, this Council will proceed to a joint debate on the two motions, then vote on them one by one. The joint debate now begins. Members who wish to speak, please press the Request to Speak button. And I'll call upon the Secretary to speak on the two motions and move the first motion. Secretary. President, I move that my first motion as printed on the agenda be passed. This is to increase fixed penalties under Fixed Penalty Traffic Contraventions Ordinance. I will shortly move that my second resolution as printed on the agenda be passed to increase the fixed penalties for the 19 offences related to road safety and traffic congestion in the schedule to the Fixed Penalty Criminal Proceedings Ordinance. The first one relates to illegal parking. The fixed penalty levels for illegal parking and most traffic contraventions have remained unchanged since 1994, that is for 31 years. Over the same period, the Composite Consumer Price Index (CCPI) has risen by over 70%, potentially diminishing the deterrent effect of these penalties. Despite the police's consistent efforts to combat traffic offences through enforcement actions under the selected traffic enforcement priorities to ensure road safety and smooth traffic flow, the figures for certain violations such as speeding, failing to comply with road markings, crossing continuous double white lines, and using mobile phones while driving continue to rise or remain persistently high. This suggests that existing penalties are no longer sufficiently effective as deterrents. As regards the figures of traffic accident, the number of fatal accidents and associated deaths in the first quarter of this year increased significantly by 40% compared to the same period last year. Furthermore, illegal roadside parking causes congestion, obstructs pedestrian visibility, which jeopardizes road safety. The number of fixed penalty notices issued for illegal parking remains high. The Transport Advisory Committee received 370 complaints on illegal parking in first quarter of this year, a 10% increase compared to the first quarter last year, highlighting the public's demand for swift action. In fact, fixed penalty levels in Hong Kong are significantly lower than those in several international jurisdictions. For example, fines for illegal parking in Singapore, London, and New South Wales are up to 10 times higher than Hong Kong's current rate. In terms of speeding, fines in these regions can be up to 22 times higher. To ensure road safety and traffic, to ensure that the deterrence effect and ensure public safety and smooth traffic flow, the government is of the view that it is necessary to increase fixed penalty levels for illegal parking under Cap 237 and for the 19 offences related to road safety and traffic congestion under Cap 240. In April this year, we consulted the panel on transport of electrical regarding these proposed adjustments. Members broadly agree that adjustments are needed. Concerning the illegal parking penalty increase, some panel members recommended increasing parking space supply and adopting a discretionary approach in enforcement. On increasing supply, the government fully supports the suggestion and has been actively working on it. Over the past few years, we have implemented short and medium to long-term measures. The Transport Department has worked tirelessly to designate new parking spaces across districts, taking into account spatial constraints, narrow roads, high traffic volumes, and views in the community. In the past 3 years, more than 15,000 parking spaces have been added across Hong Kong, about one-third of which are for commercial vehicles. The ratio of parking spaces to licensed vehicles has risen to 1.14, and that is the figure. Over the next 2 years, we expect to add over 12,000 parking spaces on top of spaces in private developments and short-term tenancy car parks. We'll continue with our work. We hope that the supply of parking spaces will continue to improve. For commercial vehicles, we adopt in relation to the ratio of parking spaces to licensed vehicles when it comes to commercial vehicles is 0.66. We will actively and enhance our efforts to increase on-street nighttime parking spaces, relax restricted zones for loading and unloading activities of goods vehicles and passenger pickup, designate parts of taxis as taxi parking space, and work with the housing department to explore the conversion of loading bays into nighttime commercial vehicle parking areas within public housing estates. On law enforcement, the police's priority is on road safety and traffic flow. Officers will decide based on the actual situation and may act with discretion. However, if illegal parking endangers road safety, decisive enforcement action will be taken. In fact, fixed penalty notices issued for illegal parking fell by 25% from 3.3 million in 2022 to 2.5 million in 2024. We fully understand members' concern regarding parking for the transport trade. However, I ask members and the communities to understand that when it comes to illegal parking by private cars or commercial vehicles, the visibility of pedestrian and other road users is impaired. Commercial vehicles are bulky. If they are illegally parked, it poses even greater risks to the elderly and young children. To protect public safety, we need to maintain consistent penalty levels across different types of vehicles. The proposed increase is relatively moderate considering the inflation since 1994, and we will take active steps to enhance parking provision. President, pursuant to Section 13 of the Fixed Penalty Traffic Contraventions Ordinance, proposed to increase the fixed penalty for illegal parking by 25% from $320 to $400. And pursuant to Section 12 of the Fixed Penalty Criminal Proceedings Ordinance, increase the fixed penalties for the 19 offences in the schedule to this ordinance, which are related to road safety and traffic congestion, by 50%. From the current range of $320 to $1,000 to a new range of $480 to $1,500, with an effective date of 1st of January 2026. Following the motion's passage, the Commissioner of Police will specify the format of both paper and electronic fixed penalty notices as per these two ordinances. The Housing Authority will also revise the specified form under the Housing Traffic Contraventions Fixed Penalty Bylaw, that is, the Fixed Penalty Notice. President, I so submit. I seek this Council's support for the motions. Thank you. I now put the question to you that the first motion of the Secretary be passed.
Mr. Chan Xiu-hong. Thank you, President. I speak in support of the two resolutions to increase the fixed penalty notices from $320 to $400 and to increase the penalty level for 90 offenses that cause traffic congestion from $320 to $1,000 to $480 to $1,500 to combat traffic offenses, enhance traffic management, and improve road safety. I understand the intent of the government, but I understand that no people want to see increase in any form of fees and charges. Fixed penalty level for traffic offenses have not been increased for 31 years. The cumulative inflation amount to 70%. As a result, it offsets the deterrent effect of the penalties. Some drivers see fixed penalty notices as parking fees. Compared to other countries and places in the world, our penalty level is comparatively low. So I support the government increasing the illegal parking penalty to enhance road safety. However, the reason for illegal parking is because we don't have enough parking spaces, and this has been a long-standing issue that we have. For private cars, commercial vehicles, we don't have enough parking spaces. Supply cannot keep up with demand. For CV parking spaces, we have 67,000 commercial vehicles in Hong Kong, but we have only 44,000 parking spaces. The ratio of vehicles to parking spaces is 0.66. Without sufficient parking spaces, 1/3 of commercial vehicles will have to park at roadside, and they may be subject to fixed penalty notices. In April, when we discussed this item in the panel on transport, I said that I do not object to enhancement of enforcement actions or the adjustment of penalty level, but we are very much concerned about the lack of parking spaces in Hong Kong. We ask the government to plan ahead to tackle the problem at root. The administration, in response to the LegCo members' request, said that they are going to increase the number of parking spaces by, say, for example, providing additional on-street metered parking spaces, making use of the space below high flyers to convert them into parking spaces, and to identify short-term tenancy sites and convert them into car park. We know that the administration attaches a lot of importance to the problem. They are determined, but it seems that the progress is rather slow. The paper sets out a number of measures and plans, but we have no numeric goals in mind. So I wonder if the government will speak with numbers by setting a goal for each district, say, for example, how many parking spaces we are going to provide for in the future. At the same time, the government should consider setting parking spaces at junctions or subsidized sale flat open space. I think that the government should make use of INT and implement automated parking system. Compared to traditional car parks, by having automated car parks, we can have double the number of parking spaces. I hope that the government try to lower the cost of these type of systems so that we can have more of it over the territory to meet the demand. As for other offenses relating to road safety and traffic congestion, it has not been adjusted over the years. That's why the penalty level is not deterrent. According to the government statistics, in the first quarter of this year, the number of fatal accidents and related deaths in the first quarter this year recorded a significant rise of 40%. We should not ignore the cost incurred. I hope that the government will make use of technology to step up enforcement to enhance traffic safety and road safety. I support the resolutions. Mr. Chen Chenying. Thank you, Madam Deputy. Over the past 20-odd years, the number of vehicles in Hong Kong increased significantly. It went from 510,000 in 2010 to 810,000 in 2024. That's an increase of 50%. The number of vehicles per kilometers on the road went from 270 to 366. That's an increase of 36%. Although we have almost a 1-to-1 ratio between vehicles and parking space, some vehicles, however, need more than one parking spaces because they need one at work and one at home. Apart from Southern District, Sai Kung, in other districts, the usage rate of parking spaces amount to 85 to 90%. The issue has exacerbated the traffic congestion issue, and that's why we have so many contraventions. Last year, the accumulative fixed penalty offences amount to 2.34 million. So on average, each vehicle illegally parked 3 times per year and commit other contraventions 0.6 times per year. This is very worrisome, and this shows that a penalty system is not deterrent enough. Just now, the Secretary said that because the penalty level has not been adjusted in light of inflation, and because the illegal parking fees in other countries is 10 times more than ours, that's why there is room for us to increase the fine levels. I support the increase of a fixed penalty for parking-related offences and other contraventions so that drivers will become more aware of the laws. But this cannot address the root cause of the problem. The government must adopt a diversified enforcement action. In February this year, the police towed away 33 vehicles that pose significant disruptions to the traffic. Supported since 2020, the government rolled out the Project Proof so that the members of the public can upload short videos of vehicles contravening traffic rules. Since the first year of the launch, the platform received 68,000 reports, and last year it received 200,000 reports. This shows that the platform's been very successful. However, illegal parking is not included in the Project Proof because under the existing laws, the fixed penalty notice must be fixed upon to the vehicles or directly handed over to the drivers. The police, however, after receiving the videos, can head to the scene immediately to see if there is any illegal parking. I think that the government should amend legislation to combat illegal parking. To alleviate the problem, we have to increase the number of parking spaces. Traditional car park is subject to restrictions. That's why the number of parking spaces is limited. However, for a smart parking system, we can overcome this issue. For a parking space that can use to accommodate only 1 car, we can accommodate now 5 to 6 cars under the smart system. The Transport Department rolled out 8 pilot sites for smart parking, but many of them have not been implemented, and many of them are in outside core districts. They cannot target urban districts such as Tsim Sha Tsui and Causeway Bay, where there is great demand for parking spaces. And the construction of multi-story car park takes time. So I think that the government should identify vacant government sites to introduce smart parking system to enhance the use of land. The government should offer tax concessions, streamline procedures to encourage private owners of car park to redevelop their car parks and introduce smart technology so that the trade will more actively participate in using the technology. Madam Deputy, I think that is necessary for us to increase the penalty level, but we have to tackle the problem at source. I hope that the government will adopt a multi-pronged approach to resolve this issue. Your time is up. Mr. Chao Chiu-sung. Thank you, Madam Deputy. Regarding the second resolution to be moved by the Secretary is about increasing the penalty level for traffic offences that cause traffic congestions and speeding. Regarding the first resolution, we're going to increase the penalty level for illegal parking to $400. I have reservation about the first resolution. We don't have enough parking spaces for commercial vehicles. I don't think that, therefore, it's appropriate for the government to increase the penalty level. In 2017, the government proposed a similar resolution by increasing the penalty level to $480. Subsequently, they reduced the penalty level to $400. It was not, however, approved by the LegCo. The subcommittee moved a resolution saying that the government have not devised effective measures to cater to the issue. That's why they asked the government to withdraw the relevant resolutions. It was done later on. 8 years have passed. It seems that the problem has not been addressed. According to the government's paper, since 2019, the government have increased 10,000 CV parking spaces, but 6,100 of them are under short-term tenancy car parks. So in actuality, operators of these short-term tenancy car parks may not provide sufficient CV parking spaces. As for other short-term measures, say for example, providing additional on-street CV parking spaces, we only see an increase from 2023, 2,000 odd to 1,800. We only have an additional 18 parking spaces at schools. So overall speaking, although there's an increase in the number of parking spaces, the number of parking spaces in private car parks is on the decline. The ratio between parking spaces to licensed CV is low. It went from 0.67 in 2017 to 0.64 in 2021 to 0.66 in 2025. So for every 3 CVs, there are only 2 parking spaces. Professional drivers are in a Russian roulette. They don't know if there are parking spaces near the loading and unloading bay where they have to drop off their goods. In 2021, the government amended the Hong Kong Planning Standards and Guidelines by increasing the number of parking spaces designated for CVs in private developments. They asked the developers to assign CV parking spaces near the developments. I think that the government should assess the effectiveness of these measures. We have to increase the parking spaces ratio for CV so that the transport industry can have this issue addressed. If this structural problem has not been solved and the penalty level is to be increased for illegal parking, I don't think that the stakeholders would accept that. For this reason, I'm not going to support the resolution. The administration said that the police officer will have discretions as to whether or not to issue fixed penalty notices when they come across illegal parking. I welcome that. Regardless of whether the resolutions will be passed, I hope that the law enforcement agency will continue to be flexible, especially given the situation of insufficient parking spaces for CVs. I hope that the police will be more understanding and sympathetic to professional drivers who have to unload their goods, sometimes illegally. Madam Deputy, I so submit.
Mr. Scott Leung. Thank you, Deputy President. Illegal parking and most traffic offences, the fixed penalty level have not been increased for 31 years. The deterrence effects of the penalty have been undermined by inflation. Illegal parking would cause congestion and also pose dangers to pedestrians. But in my constituencies in Sham Shui Po, we always saw students having to walk on the carriageway to board their school buses because of illegal parking. Now, the increase in penalty level for illegal parking and traffic offences, from a perspective of deterrence, it is necessary. Still, I have to say that the issue cannot be addressed from the root by raising the penalty. There are drivers who simply cannot find lawful parking spaces. In other areas like Kowloon West region, Sham Shui Po and Yaoji Mong, all the metered parking spaces are full. There are some who occupy these spaces on a long-term basis. During peak hours, it is impossible to find an empty metered parking space. For those drivers who can't find a spot, they have to park illegally or keep driving around and wait for a spot. Now for Austin Road and also in areas in Jordan, there are lots of vehicles circling the block to look for a parking space. It exacerbates the congestion situation. So the government should step up its efforts in identifying land to build car parks, especially for areas with high demand for parking spaces. We need to apply the technology of automated parking. Now there are the so-called puzzle design and also the horizontal automated car parks design. But these technologies are not sufficient. We need to adopt the kind of automated car park like Ferris wheel. To encourage operators to apply more advanced technologies, the government should offer incentives in terms of short-term tenancy as well as land leases. A longer tenure should be offered to ensure investment return. At the same time, the government should enhance management of on-street parking spaces. Without causing obstruction to the roads, nighttime parking should be allowed. The government must exercise discretion in enforcement and reduce the disputes caused by issuing FPNs overnight. Now, with a lot of short-term tenancy car parks, the number of parking spaces cannot be increased significantly in a short period of time. So the government should think about the fee model of car parks. Most car parks, whether publicly or privately run, they will be charged on an hourly basis. If you stay 1 minute more, then you will have to pay another hour's fee. So that would reduce the turnaround rate of these car parks. So the government should take lead and apply a new fee model for car parks run by the housing departments and the transport departments. There should be an option to pay on 15 minutes basis so that private car drivers can pay according to their actual need. This will prevent unnecessary occupancy of car parking spaces. Now with this fee model extending to private car parks, we can enhance the turnover rate of car parks. It will also address the traffic congestion caused by cars waiting to enter a car park. Now by adjusting the fee system, we can increase the number of parking spaces available in the short run. Now, I agree that we need to raise the penalty level for traffic offences, but that cannot address the root cause of illegal parking because many drivers are not deliberately breaking the law. They are just out of options. So the government must introduce advanced parking technologies while enhancing the fee model and increasing the efficiency of car parks to truly tackle the issue of illegal parking in Hong Kong. I so submit. Mr. Johnny Ng, thank you, Deputy President. The fixed penalty level for illegal parking and other traffic offences have not been raised for 31 years, so I support and understand the government's decision to raise the penalty level appropriately to ensure that the roads are safe and smooth. For serious offences like speeding and jumping red lights, we need to raise the penalty level for these offences. At the same time, raising the penalty level for FPNs will help address illegal parking and obstruction on the street. But we need to understand the root cause of these issues are the insufficient parking spaces in all districts, especially for taxis and lorry trucks. Many commercial drivers complain about the lack of parking spaces. With the increase in penalty level, it would make their operation even more difficult. So besides raising the penalty level, the government must enhance support for drivers. Now with the land scarcity, it's not easy to increase the number of parking spaces, so we need to build more multi-story car parks in collaboration with private operators. Also, we need to make use of big data and innovative technologies. For example, using automated parking technologies to increase the capacity of car parks. Now, there was a competition project from one local university that's smart parking. The students made use of AI to analyze the preferences of drivers and adjust the availability of parking spaces. The system can also analyze the usage rate of car parks and support advanced booking. This will save drivers time to queue for a spot. So I support considering other innovative measures. And also, law enforcers should use discretion when issuing FPNs for locations where it is not on the thoroughfare, and also for drivers who are just parking their cars temporarily for a quick visit to the toilets. They should be given discretion. Now, the reality is we need to resort to long-term solutions to this situation. Now, the government should make use of technologies to make our transportation system sustainable. Thank you. Mr. Frankie Yik. Deputy President, the resolutions today are for increasing the penalty level for FPNs. On one hand, penalty levels for illegal parking will be increased, and also there are increases of penalties for 19 traffic offences. Now, first on illegal parking. The last time the government proposed to raise the penalty level was back in 2018. The LegCo objected to the proposal because of the insufficient number of parking spaces. Penalty level were only raised for 5 offences. Now, 7 years on, the government is proposing the increase again, but the situation persists, especially for commercial vehicles. That's why I can't support the resolutions. The government's rationale is that the number of FPNs issued for illegal parking is persistently high. For some items, the level has not been increased for 31 years. The current level of $350 or $320 is much lower than other countries. But I want to point out that the persistently high number of FPNs on illegal parking is because of lack of parking spaces. Now, the police may issue more than 1 FPNs to 1 vehicle. When necessary, the car can be towed away and detained. It will also increase the cost of illegal parking on the part of drivers. Now, the Liberal Party's position is that despite the government's efforts, the results are underwhelming. Parking spaces of private vehicles and the number of private vehicles has increased from 1 to 1.1 in 2018 to 1 to 1.14. But there is no improvement for commercial vehicles. It still remains at 0.66. That is, for every 100 commercial vehicles, there are only 66 parking spaces. Despite various measures adopted, for example, increasing nighttime parking spaces and encouraging schools to make available their parking spaces for coaches, and also making available parking spaces in housing estates, and also using bus stops as parking spaces, the progress is underwhelming. Now, to address the issue of lack of parking spaces for commercial vehicles, the government has set out in short-term tenancy agreements or leases that a certain number of parking spaces for CVs have to be offered. However, some car parks have not complied with these lease conditions. Now, this has been troubling for the logistics industry. The government has been using more technology measures to issue FPNs. Now, the pressure is even higher now for drivers. Some drivers have to change their jobs because of the high pressure. It affects the operation of the industry. Now, for this issue, I have suggested the government to set a specific target for the number of new parking spaces for CVs each year. However, the government did not accept my proposal. Without addressing the insufficient parking spaces for commercial vehicles, it is unfair to professional drivers if we raise the penalty level. Now, concerning the other offences like speeding, using mobile phones while driving, and so on, I support the government handing down hefty punishments to these drivers to protect road users' safety. Now, for other offences like entering the hazard zone and also parking without authorization at bus stops and taxi stands, I don't oppose to the increase in penalty level. However, in terms of unauthorized picking up or setting down passengers in restricted zone, this is because of the poor planning of the government. The transportation sector should not be punished. We are already under huge pressure. Now, retailers need to have spots to unload their goods, but there are not sufficient loading bays. Now, if the cost is increased, the retailers will shift the additional cost to consumers. Now, I can foresee that the resolutions are going to be passed, but I hope that in terms of law enforcement, the police would make use of discretion according to road conditions. Now, in a moment, I will call for a division, and I will stick to my principle and object to the resolutions. Mr. Andrew Lam.
It is an effective way to increase penalty. However, you also have to consider smart traffic management, supply and demand. The focus of the proposed resolution is that the penalty for illegal parking has not been revised for a very long time. For a number of offences, they have not been revised for 31 years. The inflation over this period of time is 130%. For median income, it's increased by 150%. The unchanged level of penalty has a dampened effect. The number of penalty notices has increased by about 150%. For the 19 scheduled offences, the percentage of increase is about 50%. When we have more and more serious traffic contraventions, the minor adjustments may not be effective. Compared to other jurisdictions, the penalty level of Hong Kong is low. In Singapore, London, New South Wales, the penalty level for illegal parking is about 2 to 7 times that of Hong Kong. Jumping red light is 1 to 4 times of that of Hong Kong. The government needs to regularly review the penalty level to align our level of penalty to make sure that it has a strong deterrent effect. In addition, the government needs to put in place effective management mechanisms. I've been urging the government to improve the smart traffic management system. This will make law enforcement more effective. In this way, there will be enhanced deterrence effect. For drivers, they can access real-time information and avoid staying in congested areas. Road users jump the light or jaywalk. The penalty level after the adjustment is still low. For jaywalking is $2,000. For drivers, $900. Jaywalking is dangerous, but jumping the light by drivers is even more hazardous. How come that the penalty level is lower? Is it because of a lower number of cases involving drivers jumping the red light? I have not heard any justifications. I'm not happy with this item. The government's moving towards the right direction, but we need to enhance road safety. We have to make better use of technology, enhancing enforcement efficiency, and other aspects. I speak in support of the 2 proposed resolutions. Mr. Ben Chen. These 2 proposed resolutions are met with resistance. The penalty level for illegal parking will be increased. The same applies to other offences. When it comes to illegal parking, all we know is that there is a shortage of parking spaces. That is because of the adjustments of Hong Kong PSG, the planning standard and guidelines. They want to make use of controlling car parking spaces to control growth of vehicles. Growth of a number of vehicles, but the growth of number of vehicles is contributable to a number of factors. Say, for example, the economic growth, changes of behavior, and a number of factors. By not providing parking spaces, it doesn't necessarily suppress the growth in number of vehicles. Now the government has changed tact, and we're still faced with the same fact: serious shortage of parking spaces. The government discussed with different sectors. They want to keep the increase to a moderate level. For illegal parking, it's increased from 320 to 480. I'm sure that the level is set, having consulted various sectors, and this is an increase by about $160. Supply of parking spaces is a serious problem. Over the years, the Council has been asking for an increase in parking spaces for commercial vehicles, especially goods vehicles. But we have not seen any change in the supply of parking spaces. Well, there has been an increase by about 10,000 or so for private cars. But what about commercial vehicles, say goods vehicles? The number has dropped. This is serious. 3 years ago, there are about 40,000 spaces. Now it's down to about 30,000 or so. The extent of the decrease is shocking. When it comes to the ratio of spaces to licensed vehicles is 0.66. So there is less than one space for each commercial vehicle. That means goods vehicle drivers will have to park their cars by the road at night. But we see traffic wardens dishing out penalty tickets at 11 p.m. The increase in penalty level will eat into their income. We asked the government to increase supply of parking spaces. I talked about a drop in number of parking spaces. We understand the government plans to increase the number of metered parking by roadside. They have spent efforts over 3 years to increase the number of roadside parking spaces by 82 spaces. That is very small compared to the amount of goods vehicles. There is a significant drop by about 1,000 spaces. That's mainly from short-term tenancies. A drop by about 1,000 or so because the short-term tenancy sites have been used for other purposes. For some items, the increase is quite significant. Speeding more than 45 kilometers per hour is increased to $1,500, and speeding by about over 30 kilometers per hour increased to $900. We don't want people to speed. We support these items. But what we want is an increase in number of parking spaces. The government has undertaken that over 2 years, they will increase the number of spaces by about 12,000. We welcome that undertaking, and we hope to see it happen. Dr. Lo Kwok. The STL proposes 2 resolutions. The first one is under the Fixed Penalty Traffic Contraventions Ordinance Cap 237. The penalty level for illegal parking will increase from 320 to 400. The other one is a proposed resolution under Fixed Penalty Criminal Proceedings Ordinance. 19 scheduled offences will see a penalty level increase from 230 to 1,000 to a new range of 480 to 1,500. A lot of these penalties have not increased since 1994. Over this period of time, the accumulated CCPI has seen an increase by over 70%. For offences that causes harm to road safety, say for example jumping red light and speeding, we support the government's proposal to increase the penalty level because we want to ensure road safety. When it comes to traffic management, public health, public safety, as well as finances, the government would like to strike a balance. We understand, but the government should not neglect the plight faced by members of the public. There is a serious shortage of parking spaces over a prolonged period. The ratio of private parking spaces, private cars to parking spaces is 1.14. For commercial vehicles, it's just about 0.66. That means 2 parking spaces for 3 commercial vehicles. That means 1/3 of commercial vehicles after working hours have nowhere to park. Technology enhances enforcement efficiency. Drones are used, and also automatic license plate identification is also used. It's very easy to dish out illegal parking tickets, and it's done in a split second. Drivers are caught in a plight. We urge the administration to provide clear guidance to frontline officers. The situation and reasons and compassion should all be considered when a decision is made. Please understand the difficult situation commercial drivers are in. The government should tackle the problem from its roots. Increasing the supply of parking space is the solution. Otherwise, people will become unhappy. Over the 3 years, according to the government, there has been additional 15,000 spaces. In the coming 2 years, there will be another 12,000. We really appreciate the efforts of the government. But compared to the huge demand, the increase is only a drop in the ocean. The additional parking spaces are mostly for private cars. On the 11th of June this year, the STL, and in reply to an oral question in this council, said that, as suggested in the annex, buses, commercial vehicles, coaches over the territory, the number of parking spaces from 2022 to 2024 has registered a drop. In a supplementary question, I urged the government to increase number of parking spaces. Barriers should be swiftly removed. Resources should be better used. Well, the southbound vehicle scheme will be implemented shortly in November. However, if the parking space problem persists, the southbound vehicle program will only exacerbate the situation. We urge the administration to take a comprehensive consideration of the situation, increase the supply of parking spaces, build more multi-story car parks, use automated parking systems, encourage private developments to incorporate more parking spaces. At suitable locations, parking space should be made available for commercial vehicles for nighttime parking. The STL has been quite positive to my suggestions. I hope the government will implement these measures as soon as possible. We want to see determination and plans. Otherwise, the increase in penalty level will be very unpalatable.
Mr. Lee Chan-kan, thank you. I'd like to talk about the increase of fixed penalty for illegal parking. As some members have said, we have a significant shortage of parking spaces for commercial vehicles. So I don't support the increase of penalty level for illegal parking. The logistics industry said that they are faced with insufficient parking spaces. According to the government statistics, as at the end of this year, we only have 800,000 parking spaces. They don't include PLB, bus, green minibus, public light buses, commercial vehicles. The government said that these vehicles should be parked at a public transport interchange. However, taxis, public light bus cannot park at the public transport interchange. So public light bus and taxis will receive fixed penalty notices if they are parked at these interchanges. Although the government has designated parking spaces for taxis and public light bus as more sites, the demand cannot be met. For coaches and good vehicles, they find it even more difficult to identify parking spaces. Sometimes they park their vehicles where no obstruction would be posed. Still, they receive fixed penalty notice. As long as the police receive complaints, they head to the scene immediately and issue a notice right away. The administration said that they have provided spaces for the industry. However, the transport and logistics industry have made several proposals on parking spaces. Say, for example, the cruise terminal, the industrial park, they suggest that more parking spaces should be provided for coaches and good vehicles. The government rejected all these suggestions. Although the government do have short-term tenancy car parks, in recent years, many of these STT sites been retrieved by the government. At Washington Street, there is a parking space for coaches that will be retrieved by the government to create an open space. I know that the Transport Department is identifying another space for car park, but due to the objections of the people at the district, the project could not be taken forward. Given the shortage of parking spaces, I think that this is unfair for us to increase the parking fixed penalty for illegal parking. As someone who has been a driver for 30 years, I find it extremely difficult to identify a space at urban district. So I think that at different streets, the government should develop or put up a large notice sign telling drivers how many parking spaces there are in commercial buildings, shopping centers, or street side, so that drivers know about the parking situation in a district before they decide whether or not to go there. Many law enforcement agencies issue tickets at night, and this has undermined our night economy. Restaurants will be willing to open for longer hours if there are patrons. For Kowloon City, there used to be many patrons heading there during nighttime, and in the small hours. However, there is a serious illegal parking situation there. That's why it becomes a black spot for law enforcement agencies. They issue many fixed penalty notices at nighttime at 7 p.m. There aren't that many restaurants opened at Kowloon City at nighttime, and when police vehicles come, they issue penalty tickets right away, and diners at restaurants immediately leave to retrieve their vehicles. And how can we revitalize our night economy if this is the case? I know that law enforcement agencies have to take enforcement action. That's their duty. However, I hope that they will be more compassionate and sympathetic. I believe that this resolution will be passed, but I hope that the government, when they take enforcement action, will adopt a more mild approach by balancing the interests of different parties. When vehicles do not obstruct traffic significantly, we should allow vehicles to park in the small hours. I will object to this resolution. Thank you, Mr. Luk Chung-hong. President, there are two proposed resolutions. First, illegal parking from $320 to $400. Second, resolution on 19 offenses related to traffic congestion. We are going to increase the penalty from $320 to $1,000 to a range of $480 to $1,500. Our trade union, after submitting this proposal to the Logistics and Transport and Logistics Bureau, we listened to many views of the industry, of the trade. They said that the government ignored their plight. They said that the government should adopt more measures to increase the number of parking spaces, but the progress of these measures are very slow. Many members describe the law enforcement agencies' action as light speed. Many of the officers now issue fixed penalty notices by just taking a photo. Professional drivers used to touch their hood to see if there is a ticket there. Now, with traffic enforcement, this is not possible. The government is increasing the toll level and the fixed penalty notice level. This has posed a greater burden to the industry. Many public service fees and charges will be increased. I know that given the current fiscal position of the government, they have to increase some charges. As I said in the second reading debate of the budget, the government should not significantly raise service fees for fees for services that affect people's livelihood. I recognize the government's efforts to increase the number of parking spaces. We have more private car park in new development area, for example. However, the CV ratio is still at 0.66. In other words, for every 100 CVs, we only have 66 parking spaces. We need good traffic order in order to enhance the efficiency of the industry. Among the 16 scheduled offenses, the increase rate for different penalty is different. For speeding, you can choose not to commit it. So I think that we should increase the penalty for it. But for picking up, setting down passengers in restricted zone, stopping public bus, PLB, or taxi longer than necessary when picking up or setting down passengers, many of the drivers don't want to commit these offenses. Sometimes taxi drivers may get a ticket if their passengers spend longer time to argue the taxi fares, and sometimes maybe elderly passengers don't want to alight at a very busy district and want them to set them down in restricted zones. If the driver commits this offense, they will have to pay $840. For workers that have to unload their goods, they may not be able to identify a legal space for loading and unloading, and if they receive a ticket, they will lose a day of their salary. In 2018, we have increased the penalty for some offenses, say, for example, unlawfully entering box junction, U-turn causing obstruction, picking up, setting down passengers in restricted zones. You are increasing it again. For these offenses, the government has already increased the penalty level in 2018. The cumulative inflation during the period is only 10%. So I don't think that's reasonable. It's very difficult for me to support this resolution. Your time is up. Mr. Luck, Mr. Michael Tian. Madam Deputy, the fees on services of the government can be categorized into two groups. First, penalty. Second, prevention. For speeding, jumping red light, the penalty levels be increased by 50%. Drivers have to abide by traffic rules. Everyone here would say that only right. If you don't abide by the rules, you are going to be penalized. I know that the fixed penalty levels for many of the traffic contraventions have remained unchanged since 1994, and the composite consumer price index has increased by over 70% in the same period. So I support the raise of the penalty levels. But I think that the administration should conduct a review. I hope that the government will look into the penalty level once every 5 years instead of once every 30 years. And the rate of increase should tie with the inflation rate. The rate of increase for income is 150%, and that outweighs the inflation rate of 60% over, say, 30 years. So if we are going to be responsible, we should tie the fixed penalty levels with the inflation rate. This is better than increasing the level by 50% all of a sudden. Almost all of the offenses will be increased by 50%, and for the illegal parking, the penalty will be raised by 25%. Everyone says that there are not enough parking spaces in Hong Kong. There are some wide roads in Hong Kong with no metered parking spaces. That's a waste of road space. Given this situation, it's unreasonable for us to increase the fixed penalty level for illegal parking by 50%. So I think that is reasonable for the rise to be 25%. The government questioned if our penalty level is deterrent enough, as our penalty level is far lower than other overseas jurisdictions. However, if we don't increase the penalty level, then there's no point. If we are to increase the penalty level for illegal parking, we must have more metered parking spaces so that no commercial vehicle drivers will have to park their good vehicles illegally. For roads that are wide enough, we should designate loading and unloading space for goods vehicles. At the same time, we should install CCTV to prevent illegal parking. The police should not take enforcement action as soon as they receive complaints. If commercial vehicles are only parked illegally without loading and unloading any goods, they should be penalized. If the workers are actually unloading and loading goods, the police should exercise their discretion unless a serious traffic obstruction is in place. I think that the government should introduce AI to assist enforcement action. I think that we should have the AI screen suspected illegal parking, and the police will then be able to judge if the video screen is actually illegal parking, instead of having the police to get to the scene right upon receipt of complaints and issue fixed penalty notices. I so submit. I support the resolutions.
Mr. Holden Chow, Deputy President, concerning traffic offences like jumping red lights, speeding, these offences pose significant risk to other road users. So I support enhancing the deterrence by raising the penalty level. There is a consensus on that. However, today we are not just talking about serious traffic offences, but also the penalty level for illegal parking. Now, the government may want to increase the deterrence by adopting a heavy-handed approach to fine drivers who illegally park their vehicles. But there are some figures to the contrary of that. For commercial vehicles, the parking space to vehicle ratio is 0.66. Now, I will not labor on the difficulties faced by professional drivers. They really have difficulties finding a place to park their vehicles. But it's the same for private car drivers as well. Residents would make a decision on their means of transport based on the availability of parking space. Now, the government has pledged to increase the number of parking spaces by 12,500 for the next 2 years. That's the right direction, but that's not sufficient. We have been told by many citizens that there is a decrease in the number of metered parking spaces in Hong Kong. Now, in terms of smart car parks, there are some successful examples. There is one temporary smart car parks in Tsuen Wan, which has been built rapidly. So can we have more smart car parks in Yuen Long and Tuen Mun to meet the parking needs? Now, finally, we have been told by many residents, on one hand, the government wants to boost the economy. To boost the economy, we need footfall. Now, in the context of real economy, we want to see families coming to shop. But it's really discouraging that a family coming out to shop by driving are slapped a fine. So we need to adopt a more human-centric approach to handle the issue. To vitalize the economy, we need to encourage mobility, and we cannot issue FPNs wantonly to the consumers. So we need to reconsider our mechanism for issuing FPNs. In our constituency, we have heard a lot of complaints about how hardworking the police officers have been in issuing FPNs. So, taking this opportunity, we would like to convey this concern to the government. We need to address the root cause of illegal parking, but we do look forward to having the 12,500 additional parking spaces in the next 2 years. Now, very soon, the southbound vehicle scheme will be launched, so we need to add more parking spaces urgently. Mr. Kwok Wai-keung. Thank you, Deputy President. Concerning the proposed resolutions to raise the penalty levels for 20 traffic offences, I feel helpless. Now, the government has been stressing that the fixed penalty level have not been increased for 30 years. The deterrence effect has been offset by inflation. We understand the logic, everyone does. But it's not just raising fixed penalty level for illegal parking by 25% and also 50% for other traffic offences. There is also the contemplated increase in electric vehicle license, fees for meter parking spaces, and also the tunnel fees for the 3 tunnels. Now, the government needs to review the level of fees to ensure cost recovery. But with the $100 billion large fiscal deficits, it gives the optics that the government is filling this gap by increasing the fine. As is, the economy is poor and many drivers are under huge pressure. Raising the penalty level for illegal parking will not help much. Now, according to the 2.54 million FPNs issued last year, the 25% increase will just mean additional $100 million in revenue. It will not help making up for the deficit. It is not addressing the superficial and the root causes. As long as there are needs for brief parking or stopping, there will be people taking risk. The solution should be increasing the number of parking spaces and loading and unloading bay, especially for lorry, trucks, and cyclists and motorcyclists in the food delivery industry. Now, in the past, there would be a lorry attendant together with the driver on a truck. Now, to save cost, there is only the driver. So they can't afford to park their lorries far away from their destination. They have to park near the delivery point. The situation is even tougher for food delivery workers. Time is of essence. They can't park their motorcycles far away from the destination. So they have to park their motorcycles downstairs of the buyer. They are just stopping briefly for 15 minutes to deliver the food. Now, when some delivery workers found that police officers would issue FPNs to food delivery workers first, because they know that the food delivery workers would only stay for a brief period. So it makes people wonder if the police officers are issuing FPNs for financial gains rather than keeping the road smooth. Now, even for law-abiding citizens who park their vehicles in car parks, they would also be affected. With the increase in penalty level, the hourly rate of parking in car parks would also be increased. So does it mean that everything would be well with no increase in penalty level? Well, no. So since an increase in penalty level is inevitable, I hope the police would be more human-centric in enforcing the law to make people feel better. Mr. Perry Gill, Deputy President, the government justifies this increase by saying that the penalty levels have not been raised for 31 years. Now, the last increase was in 2018. Now, the inflation and the increase in the CCPI has undermined the deterrence level. Now, in overseas places, for illegal parking, the fine level is 10 to 22 times higher than Hong Kong's. Now, there are some offences with persistently high number. For example, cutting double white lines, there is an increase of 35% over the past years. Now, for these serious offences which would endanger road safety, no one would have an issue about an increase in the penalty level. However, for illegal parking, there's been a lot of debate. My personal view is by increasing the penalty level to $400 from $320, we still cannot address the problem because the solution should be increasing the number of parking spaces. Private and commercial drivers would be worried about the increase in penalty level because it would add to the stress of driving and also their operational cost. Now, in my industry, the tourism sector, coach drivers faced the double whammy of being unable to find a place to pick up and unload the passengers. There are insufficient pickup spots for coaches. To materialize the vision of tourism is everywhere, we need to offer more loading bay for coaches. Now, we all know that land is scarce in Hong Kong and there is a lack of parking spaces. Now, the government has been doing its best. Over the past 3 years, Hong Kong's parking spaces has increased by 15,000. However, the parking space to commercial vehicles ratio is still very low at 0.66. There is a serious shortage. And according to the trade, a lot of short-term tenancy car parks have been repossessed by the government. They need to park their coaches elsewhere. So on one hand, the government should continue to increase the supply of parking spaces. Also, at major tourism spots, there should be dedicated parking spots and loading bay for coach buses so that tourists can have a better experience. Now, for commercial vehicles, which need to park briefly for operational needs, for example, loading and unloading, and for drivers to use the bathroom, the police should exercise discretion. Temporary waiting spot or parking space should be made available during certain hours of the day. We should also use technologies to speed up turnover of car parks and prevent long-term occupation of parking spaces. Now, to boost our economy, we need to adopt a more lenient approach in tackling nighttime illegal parking. We need to encourage more people to go out at night and boost the nighttime economy. Thank you. Dr. So Xiangwing.
Madam Deputy, government proposes 2 resolutions. That is to increase the penalty level for illegal parking from $320 to $400, an increase by 25%. Also to increase the penalty level for 19 scheduled offences by 50%. Improving traffic management and ensuring road safety are very important to Hong Kong. I speak in support of the 2 proposed resolutions. Road safety is a matter of life and death. Contraventions may cost lives. In the first quarter this year, there are 21 fatal accidents causing the death of 23 people. The number of deaths and number of accidents has increased by 40% compared to same time last year. The police found 4 main causes: dangerous driving, improper use of roads, exhaustion, and malfunctioning of vehicles. In terms of enforcement in 2024, the police has issued 480,000 fixed penalty tickets against moving offences. For a number of items, it's persistently poor. Say, for example, not abiding by road markings, crossing double white lines, and the use of mobile phones while driving and speeding. It seems that the attitude of drivers are quite poor. The deterrence effect of existing penalty level is low. The proposed resolution increase the penalty tickets for 19 scheduled offences by about 20%. In relation to speeding, failing to comply with markings, crossing double white lines, etc. A large number of offences see their penalty level remain unchanged since 1994. Some of them have been revised since 2018. Compared to overseas jurisdictions, for New South Wales, the maximum penalty is $22,000. In Singapore, it's about 2,200 Hong Kong dollars. In Hong Kong, it's just 1,000. There is a difference of 22 times compared to the penalty of the highest level. There is a need for Hong Kong to enhance the penalty level. The 50% increase seems to be significant. However, the last change was 31 years ago. If we are to ensure that drivers abide by the laws, the government's proposed adjustment is reasonable and meaningful. I also suggest that there should be use of AI in traffic management. This will enhance the accuracy of enforcement actions. AI should be used to analyze the cause of traffic accidents. That's effective in preventing accident. In a number of cities in Northern England, this has been used. We should draw reference from that. The penalty received should be used to ensure road safety, not to be pumped into the public coffers. Fixed penalty ticket revenue should be used in a dedicated manner. There should be measures put in place to ensure road safety, to enhance training of drivers. There should be a dynamic assessment to the penalty level. After assessing the affordability of the public, there should be refinement in the penalties regularly so that we can avoid what happened last time, that is, penalty level remaining unchanged for 30 years. Mr. Dennis Leung. The first resolution is under Section 31 of 231. The current level is 320. It was set in 1994 by resolution. Now there is a proposed resolution to increase it by 1/4 to $400. The second resolution is made under Cap 240, Section 12, in relation to 19 scheduled offences relating to road safety and traffic congestion. There are actually 62 offences, but today's proposed resolution covers only 19 offences. The increase is about 50%, from a range of $230 to $1,000 to a new range of $480 to $1,500. The last time it was revised was in 1994. The government's justification is that, well, the illegal parking penalty as well as a large number of contraventions have not seen adjustment in penalty for 31 years. And in the meantime, there has been a significant increase in inflation. For drivers, pedestrian, or other road users, road safety is important. We should keep number of accidents to zero. That's a slogan by the Road Safety Council. I expect road users to abide by rules. But it doesn't matter how hard we work on publicity and education, there are always drivers or pedestrians breaking the law, and they cause harm or death to other people, in addition to property damage. So legislation as well as a penalty aim to enhance deterrence effect to ensure that road users will be law-abiding. I ask the government to continue to improve road design. There should be increase in parking facilities or parking spaces. The aim is to meet the needs of road users. In some new development areas, there are 6 carriageway roads. So to cross the road, you have to use 8 to 10 minutes crossing the road 4 times. Seems that the Transport Department has not adjusted, taking into account the changing situation. They're quite calcified. They'd rather do nothing in order to not do wrong. Subordinates don't want to voice their new opinions. In the end, the public stand to lose. The government needs to change its working culture so that we can achieve prosperity. Traffic management should be improved, say for example diagonal crossings. There is another issue. When the light changes from red to yellow, the situation is different. That's why a lot of people inadvertently break the law. The TD should make adjustments. The new penalty level will come into operation on the 1st of January next year. The government should enhance the publicity and education in the coming 5 months so that road users will know the new requirements and the new penalty level. But what about car parks, parking spaces? Is there a timetable roadmap? So that the sector knows the government is working on it. The STL needs to give directions and enhance communication. Mr. Peter Shield. Thank you, Madam Deputy. We're here to discuss about a proposed increase in penalty level. Some members said that, well, if everyone's law-abiding, it doesn't really matter how much the penalty is increased. I fully agree with that when it comes to pedestrians. Don't cross unless it's red, unless it's green. Some people may take chances. I understand why the government wants to increase the penalty, but what about drivers? They drive to a place, they are willing to pay, but they can't find a spot. It's a general consensus that there is insufficient parking. There is insufficient meter parking by the roadside. So it's not the case that if you want to abide by the law, you don't have to worry about it because there is not enough supply of parking spaces. What is the current economic situation? Yes, I agree that the penalty level has remained unchanged for a very long time. If you ask for an increase in 2017-18, I think that you will not be met with resistance because at that time the economy was doing quite well. Even if you are given a penalty ticket when you briefly park by the road, you'll be able to afford it. But time's different now. It was just yesterday when I was having dinner with some people from the sector. It was someone from the fisherman's market. They said that businesses for restaurants is poor. One of the reasons is that traffic wardens are working very hard to dish out penalty tickets. In the past, they would briefly park by the road to just go in for a quick meal, but not anymore. In the past, they would just quickly have maybe a bowl of noodles, and when the traffic warden comes, and they would just simply return to their car. But now, the situation is different. There is no leniency. You'll be given a ticket. In smaller districts, there is no public car park nearby. So you can imagine what the business situation is like for those running a restaurant business. This is not the right time to propose an increase. The case is worse for commercial vehicle drivers. Even if you park the car somewhere in the middle of the night, you get a ticket. And the penalty level will increase. In addition, there is the online health service. You can imagine the pressure faced by taxi drivers, and that is the case for minibus drivers as well. I myself and the Liberal Party do not agree that this is the time to increase the penalty level for offences relating to road safety.
Mr. Paul Chen. Madam Deputy, as an experienced Legislative Council member, you'd understand what I'm going to say. Power is perception. So what would people think about the government's proposal to increase the penalty level? When the economic situation is so worse, perhaps it's not the right time for us to raise the fines. When we freeze the pay for civil servants, it seems that the government is increasing the fees and charges for the people. The government does have justifications to increase the penalty level. We have not raised the fees for 30 years. The fines in other countries is far higher than us. Especially given the efficiency of fixed penalty notice issuance of the law enforcement agencies, people are not happy about this proposal. I think that the government should take into account that public perception. As the government, we should sometimes be lenient, sometimes be strict. We have to guard against national security. Sometimes we have to err on the side of safety, but at the same time, we have to be lenient on some areas. Say, for example, issues relating to livelihood, smoking, illegal parking. Many people complain about law enforcement agencies. Who try to catch people, especially elderly, when they jaywalk. If you want people to abide by the law, you should have uniformed branch police officers stand at the roadside to make sure that people don't jaywalk. You should not have people in police officers in plain clothes to catch people. Just like what Mr. Luk Chung-hong said, some police officers tend to issue tickets to motorcycles first because they leave very fast. What is the purpose of these ordinances? Do we want to reduce traffic accidents? Do we want to protect the people? Or do we want to generate revenue for the government? If you don't do this right, people may have misconception that the government is trying to raise revenue by charging a penalty. For jumping red light offenses, this type of offense is very serious. There was a former inspector who was jailed immediately because a pedestrian have to amputate her leg because she was being hit. Speeding is also a very serious offense. I understand that we have to raise the fines for that. But for illegal parking, as many members have said, our tourists need it. We need to boost the nighttime economy because, well, we were not able to do that because many people are reluctant to come out at night because we don't have enough parking spaces. According to what Mr. Chen Xiu-hong said, he asked the government about how many repair workshops we have in Hong Kong. There are only very few. And many of these workshops take up metered parking spaces at roadside. Many nightclubs also tried society members to take up spaces. I think that the government should be more lenient, more compassionate, exercise more discretion. I think that people need to take a break. If they are so stressed, they will lie flat. Thank you, Mr. Stephen Ho. Thank you, Madam Deputy. I listened to half of Mr. Shu Kafai's speech and Mr. Tony Che. I feel the same. Many people's livelihood is affected by law enforcement agencies issuing fixed penalty notices so frequently, especially in the Kowloon district. When people go to do grocery shopping in wet markets, they receive tickets in just 30 minutes. We don't have enough infrastructures. As a result, so many people have to illegally park their vehicles. Second, we're raising the fines from $320 to $400. Can people not afford it? They can, but many more people complain about the speed of ticket issuance and the lack of discretion exercised by the officers. Faced with commercial practitioners, seems that the problem is especially serious. On the mainland, I saw drivers speed and they would receive an SMS from the law enforcement agency saying that their vehicles, AB 1234, were speeding and they were not issued a fixed penalty notice. They were sent with a video capturing their speeding act. Now we have e-traffic enforcement. The issuance of ticket is much faster than before. So is the issuance of tickets the only way to penalize people for traffic contraventions? Fixed penalty notice is not just about illegal parking, but also for exceeding the time limit of metered parking space. Now you will raise the parking fee from $2 to $4. I think the design of the smart parking meter is not that smart. If the previous cars have 3 minutes left, I cannot top that up. I have to wait till the time limit is out before I can recharge it. When you came to the LegCo to seek for funding, you said that your system was very smart, very well designed. So I think that you should review your system so that I would be more convinced, even if I'm issued with the fixed penalty notice. Now I have to wait for another 10 minutes for the time limit for the metered parking space to run out before I can recharge it or top up it. I said when we discussed the budget that the government proposed a departure tax for vehicles leaving Hong Kong for the mainland. I don't think that this is a good proposal. It's all about public perception. If you said that you're going to raise the fine by $80 back in the days when the economy was good, people would not object to it. If there were many vehicles parked in a crowded street, we would not object to the law enforcement action. I know that the Secretary is in a very difficult position. Many members are going to vote against the resolutions. I don't understand that. I don't think that the government is going too far by raising the fines, which has not been adjusted in 30 years. So I have no way but to support the resolutions by increasing the fines from $320 to $400. I thank the government for taking on board our suggestions by raising the penalty for serious contraventions by a larger amount. I think that the timing for this is not right.
Does any other member wish to speak? If not, I call upon the Secretary for Transport and Logistics to reply, then the debate will come to a close. Secretary. President, Madam Deputy, I thank members for their valuable comments. I've been listening intently. I will give my consolidated reply. Our aim under the two proposed resolutions is a simple one: to ensure road safety and traffic flow. There is land scarcity in Hong Kong. There are private cars and commercial vehicles circulating in Hong Kong. I will elaborate later. Members have been reflecting the views of the public. Drivers may want to stop their car somewhere to eat, to shop, day or night. During certain periods of time, a lot of private cars will go to a certain place. There are limited parking spaces. Parallel parking may take up 2 lanes. That means road users or drivers can only use 1 lane, causing issues or traffic congestions. It's something that we see a lot. I'm glad to hear that most members express support for the two proposed resolutions, especially the 19 scheduled offences relating to road safety and traffic congestions. A number of members have echoed that support. They've expressed their views. To effectively manage traffic, to reduce congestion and to enhance road safety for pedestrians, the Bureau and departments have been making active use of various measures, including the use of technology. We use innovative technology in different areas, say for example, traffic lights. A number of members expressed a concern about supply of parking spaces. I've mentioned this in my opening remark. I would like to reply to members' views in a targeted manner. In the past few years, we have launched a number of short, medium, and long-term measures under a multi-pronged approach to increase parking spaces. We've been working on all fronts. We use policy innovation, use of technology. We encourage collaboration among different departments. We want to accord priority to commercial vehicles. Let me give you some figures. Through different measures, we have altogether increased the number of parking spaces by about 30%. For commercial vehicles, it accounts for 1/3. And in the past 3 years, we have created 15,000 parking spaces. From 2019 to 2021, the parking spaces to licensed vehicles for private cars was 1.09. It's now increased to 1.14, an increase by about 4.6%. When it comes to measures to increase supply of parking spaces, we expect that the results will be seen. We reckon that in the coming 2 years, there will be about 12,000 parking spaces. About 500 of them are for commercial vehicles. We'll also work to increase the number of parking spaces through short-term tenancy and private development projects. Our focus is on increasing parking spaces for commercial vehicles. A number of members talk about different districts. There are districts with an acute shortage, say Kwun Tong, Kwai Tsing, Wong Tai Sin. Yaojinwang and Shamshui-Po. The latter are districts with rampant illegal parking. We think that we need to tackle the problem at source. Commercial vehicles, after working for a day, will return to their home at night. Then they need to park. Perhaps that we need to identify parking spaces near residential areas. But there is limited space. We want to make better use of space. There are 8 measures under our purview. When it comes to design, we will allocate roadside parking spaces for commercial vehicles for nighttime parking. And in public housing estates, we will release more loading and unloading areas for commercial vehicles to park at night. And that is to meet the needs of drivers who live in these places. For non-residential areas, we'll make use of loading, unloading, pickup, drop-off areas for commercial vehicles to park at night. We have 1,800 nighttime street-side parking spaces. The Transport Department will enhance its effort to identify more such parking spaces, especially in areas near public housing estates. The drop in commercial parking spaces is because of cessation of car parks in certain areas. We'll identify other sources to increase supply. We'll talk to government departments so that in short-term tenancy sites we'll increase 200 parking spaces for commercial vehicles. The TD will create more short-term tenancy car parks. The Hong Kong PSG, revised in 2021, set out new requirements for certain areas. 4,800 parking spaces will be provided in the first public housing estate built after the revision. 200 of these spaces will be for commercial vehicles. We plan that before 2026, we will provide at least 3,000 automated parking spaces. Currently, there are 5 car parks under public projects in Chung Kwan Ho, Sham Shui Po, San Po Kong that are under construction. These car parks use automated parking systems. They use different types. That is, a puzzle stacking systems, vertical lifting, circular shaft lifting systems. There are also 6 car parks under short-term tenancy in Tsuen Wan Tai Po, Sham Shui Po, Ma On Shan, and Yau Ma Tei. From the end of this year to 2029, we will finish the construction of these car parks. In addition to hardware, we also have software. We'll make use of technology to improve information flow in relation to parking spaces. We'll also use technology to improve the parking efficiency and experience. We want to increase density of parking spaces. We use applications to provide real-time parking space vacancy information to help drivers find a spot. Over 700 car parks, 120,000 parking spaces, and or 20,000 metered parking spaces on roadside have real-time parking space vacancy information. We encourage users to we allow drivers to use remote parking functions to assist parking in tight spaces. Using the 8 measures I've just outlined, we're confident that the supply of parking spaces will continue to increase. In terms of commercial vehicle parking spaces, we have an objective. the rate of increase of parking spaces will pick up. When it comes to enforcement, the police accord priority to road safety, which prevents accidents and casualty. Priority is also accorded to ensuring smooth traffic flow. The police has reported to the transport panel that frontline officers will take into account the actual situation when deciding what action to take. If necessary, exercise discretion without affecting road safety. According to the police, the police officers will make reference of enforcement guidelines and take into account the actual situation. Say, for example, whether the vehicle involved in the accidents causing traffic congestion, whether they're involved in relation to serious offences, whether the drivers have reasonable excuse. If necessary, a warning will be issued instead of prosecution. If the illegal parking doesn't cause a serious congestion, if the driver is willing to drive away straight away, the police will also enforce the law. The proposed adjustment of penalty level is moderate, considering the level of inflation over the same period. We have taken into account reason and compassion. We want to enhance deterrence. We want to ensure road safety and traffic flow while taking into account the operating environment of the transport sector. There is never a good time to revise fees. But if fees remain unchanged over too long a time, the deterrence will be dampened. We will make use of legislative amendments to implement our measures to enhance road safety, traffic management, and to ensure smooth traffic flow. I ask members to support the two proposed resolutions. Thank you. We now first vote on the Secretary's first motion. I put the question to you that the Secretary's first motion be passed. Mr. Frankie Yip claims a division. The bell will ring for 5 minutes. Voting begins. Please check your votes. If there are no queries, voting stops. 86 present, 77 for, 4 against, 4 abstentions. I think the question is agreed by majority of members present. I declare the motion passed. Secretary, you may move your second motion. President, I move that my second motion as printed on the agenda be passed. I propose the question to you that the Secretary's second motion be passed. Those in favor, please raise their hands. Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by majority of members present. I declare the motion passed.
Members' motion on the period